Over 12,500 feet above sea level, in one of the harshest climates on Earth, stands a city that, according to mainstream history, should never have existed. Here, in the Bolivian Altiplano, colossal stone blocks, some weighing over 100 tons, are cut with such precision they defy explanation. But what if we're wrong about who built it and when? This is the story of Tiwanaku, a civilization that rose and fell long before the Inca, leaving behind a puzzle of stone that continues to baffle us today. Welcome to the city above the clouds. At dawn, the first light of the sun stretches across this vast, silent landscape. The air is thin, and a cold wind sweeps dust across monumental ruins that have stood for centuries. The feeling here is one of profound isolation, of standing in the presence of something ancient, powerful, and deeply unsettling. This is Tiwanaku, a name that echoes with mystery. Conventional archaeology tells us that Tiwanaku flourished between 500 and 1000 CE, near the shores of the legendary Lake Titicaca. It was one of the most significant and advanced civilizations in the pre-Columbian Andes, a powerhouse of culture and innovation that laid the groundwork for the later Inca Empire. We know they were master farmers, developing an ingenious system of raised fields that allowed them to cultivate crops in this high-altitude desert. Carbon dating of organic materials found at the site confirms this timeline, and artifacts show evidence of extensive trade networks that reached from the Pacific coast to the Amazon basin. They were organized, sophisticated, and successful. But this official story, as neat as it sounds, only scratches the surface. It fails to answer the most fundamental questions. Why build a metropolis here, in such an inhospitable environment? How did they quarry, transport, and assemble megalithic stones without the use of the wheel, draft animals, or iron tools? And perhaps most perplexing of all, for a civilization so advanced, why is there no trace of a written language? The deeper you look, the more the comfortable explanations begin to unravel. Let's start with the scale. The heart of Tiwanaku is a ceremonial center spanning nearly 1.5 square miles. Dominating the site is the Akapana, a massive terrace pyramid, once clad in polished stone and believed to be aligned with the stars. Nearby stands the Kalasasaya Temple, a vast open-air enclosure defined by enormous red sandstone pillars. The name itself means the place of the standing stones. Inside, you'll find intricately carved monoliths, stoic figures staring out across the plateau as they have for 1,000 years. The stonework here is unlike anything else in the ancient world. Blocks of andesite, one of the hardest stones on Earth, are joined together with such perfect accuracy that you can T-slip a piece of paper between them. There's no mortar holding them together, just sheer, unadulterated precision. These aren't just simple building blocks, they are masterpieces of engineering, featuring complex interior and exterior right angles, smooth surfaces, and drilled holes that seem almost machined. Modern stonemasons will tell you that achieving this level of precision on andesite, even with today's diamond-tipped tools, is incredibly difficult. So how did an ancient culture manage it? The official theory suggests simple stone hammers, bronze chisels, and endless patience. But then we come to the Tiwanaku complex, a short distance from the main site, and the mystery deepens exponentially. Here, the stones are even more complex, featuring interlocking H-blocks that fit together like a giant puzzle. It's a scene of organized chaos, as if a cataclysmic event shattered a structure of unimaginable complexity. And here's where the story takes a turn. Many of the largest andesite blocks at Tiwanaku and Tiwanaku, weighing between 100 and 130 tons, were not quarried locally. Geologists have traced their origin to a quarry on the western shore of Lake Titicaca, over 55 miles away. Think about that for a moment. A 130-ton block, that's the equivalent of nearly 100 cars. How do you move something that massive across miles of rugged, high-altitude terrain, including crossing a large body of water, without modern technology? The logistics are simply staggering, pushing the boundaries of what we believe ancient people were capable of. Could it be that our understanding of their technology or even their timeline, is fundamentally flawed. Some researchers have pointed to the local Aymara legends, which speak of giants who built the city in a single night using a technology that could make the stones light and carry them through the air. While these are myths, they highlight the sheer unbelievability of the achievement. It was so incredible that later generations couldn't imagine it being done by ordinary humans. This brings us to the most iconic artifact of Tiwanaku, the Gate of the Sun. This single, massive block of andesite, weighing around 10 tons, is carved with breathtaking detail. At its center is a figure often identified as the sun god, Virakaka, holding staffs in each hand as rays emanate from his head. Surrounding him are 48 winged figures, a silent procession of mysterious beings. For decades, archaeologists viewed these carvings as purely religious or mythological, a depiction of their core beliefs, but what if they represent something more? Some astronomers and engineers have argued that the gate is not just a work of art, but a sophisticated solar calendar, a stone computer tracking solstices, equinoxes, and the 290-day Venusian cycle. Was this incredible architecture symbolic, designed to inspire awe in the gods, or was it functional, a precise astronomical device built by people with a profound knowledge of the cosmos? Were the builders of Tiwanaku simply devout priests, or were they also master scientists and astronomers, encoding their knowledge in stone for eternity? The civilization of Tiwanaku eventually collapsed around the year 1000 CE, likely due to a prolonged period of drought that made their advanced agricultural system untenable. The city was abandoned, and its secrets were slowly buried by the sands of time, but its influence did not die. The knowledge, the mythology, and the architectural principles of Tiwanaku were passed down through the centuries, heavily influencing the rise of the next great Andean power, the Inca Empire. The Inca revered Tiwanaku as a sacred place of origins, believing it was here that the world was created. In a way, they were right. The cultural DNA of the Andes was forged in this very place. The puzzles of Tiwanaku are far from solved. Who these people truly were, how they accomplished such impossible feats of engineering, and what message they intended to leave behind remains one of history's greatest enigmas. But to even begin to understand Tiwanaku, we must go back to the source of all Andean legends, the place from which the creator god Virakaka himself was said to have emerged. To understand the city above the clouds, we must first journey to the sacred waters of Lake Titicaca. If you're fascinated by ancient mysteries like this one, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next chapter in this incredible story.
History isn't just what happened, it's what was hidden. Welcome to the Chrono Archives, where lost empires rise again, forgotten legends speak, and ancient truths are brought back to life. From world-shaping history and powerful myths to legendary rulers and timeless civilizations, every story here is carefully uncovered, deeply researched, and cinematically told. The past is calling, will you answer? Subscribe and journey through time, one unforgettable chronicle at a time.
According to Inca legend, the gods rose from this very lake after a great flood wiped out the world. But what if this wasn't just a myth? What if the origins of civilization itself lie hidden beneath these waters? For centuries, Lake Titicaca has been considered the cradle of Andean gods, a place where creation began. But could it be that this sacred site is even older, even more significant than the Incas themselves? Was the legendary city of Tiwanaku the original sacred city, a place lost to time and memory? Let's dive in. The story begins with Virakaka, the great creator god. The legends say that after a devastating flood, he emerged from the depths of Lake Titicaca. Standing on its shores, he commanded the sun and moon to rise into the sky. Then, from stones, he fashioned the first human beings, the ancestors of all Andean peoples. This powerful creation myth isn't unique to the Incas, it echoes across countless pre-Inca cultures, all pointing back to this one mystical lake. Why is this specific body of water so central to so many different origin stories? And could the powerful, enigmatic civilization of Tiwanaku, which flourished centuries before the Inca Empire, be the key to unlocking this mystery. The Tiwanaku culture dominated this region for over 1,000 years. Their capital, a sprawling city of monumental stone structures, sits just 12 miles from the lake shore. For a long time, archaeologists believed the city was purely a land-based marvel. But the local legends persisted, tales of a submerged city, the true home of the gods. For decades, these stories were dismissed as folklore. Until the year 2000, when an international team of archaeologists made a discovery that would change everything. Beneath the waves, just off the coast near the island of the Sun, they found it. Not a complete city like Atlantis, but something just as profound, the submerged ruins of what appeared to be a massive temple complex. They uncovered long cobbled roads, towering retaining walls, and ceremonial terraces, all perfectly preserved in the cold, clear water. It was an astonishing find. The structures were undeniably Tiwanaku in style, proving that their civilization was intimately connected to the lake itself, not just the land around it. This discovery sent shockwaves through the archaeological community. It wasn't a sunken city in the middle of the lake, but a deliberately constructed ritual center along a now submerged ancient shoreline. The water levels of Lake Titicaca have fluctuated dramatically over the millennia. What if the Tiwanaku people built these temples during a period when the water was much lower? And what if a subsequent, catastrophic rise in the lake level, a great flood, drowned their sacred site? This event would have been seared into the collective memory of the survivors. Could the myth of Tiwanaku emerging from the water to create the world anew be a symbolic retelling of this very real, historical trauma? A way for a civilization to process the loss of its most sacred place and the birth of a new era. The flood wouldn't have destroyed their world, but it would have fundamentally changed it, forcing them to adapt and giving rise to a powerful new narrative of creation and rebirth. The underwater ruins therefore aren't evidence of a lost continent, but something far more interesting, a direct link between a geological event, a historical people, and the birth of a myth that would shape an entire continent for 1,000 years. It suggests the Tiwanaku weren't just remembering a flood. They were the originators of the flood myth itself. Now, it's crucial to be clear. This doesn't mean we found Atlantis in the Andes. The claims of a vast, utopian city sinking overnight are pure fantasy. What the evidence does point to is a powerful civilization that built ceremonial centers along the shore of a lake with a volatile history. When the waters rose, they didn't just lose buildings. They lost a part of their spiritual heartland. And from that loss, they created a powerful story that has endured for centuries. A story of a creator god emerging from the very waters that claimed their sacred ground. The Tiwanaku civilization eventually collapsed long before the rise of the Incas, but their legacy, their architecture, and their myths were inherited by those who came after. The Incas saw the monumental ruins of Tiwanaku and, hearing the ancient flood legends, believed it was a place built by giants or the gods themselves. They adopted Lake Titicaca as their own origin place, building upon the sacred foundations laid centuries earlier. The submerged ruins are a testament to that deep history, a physical link in a chain of belief stretching back into the mists of time. It's a powerful reminder that sometimes the most enduring myths are rooted in real, tangible history, hidden just beneath the surface. So, we have a compelling theory that links myth, geology, and archaeology. It explains why Lake Titicaca is so sacred and suggests the Tiwanaku civilization is the source of the foundational Andean creation story. It's a fascinating narrative, but it leaves us with an even bigger, more tangible mystery. Because myths and flood memories alone don't explain how the people of Tiwanaku achieved their incredible engineering feats. Myths alone don't move 100-ton stones. And that is where our investigation must turn next. Thanks for watching, and if you're intrigued by the mysteries of ancient civilizations, make sure to subscribe for our next chapter. Look at this, no mortar, no iron tools, not even the wheel. Just stone on stone, fitted together with a precision that seems to defy everything we thought we knew about the ancient world. These are the H-blocks of a civilization that vanished centuries ago. So, how did they do it? To even begin to answer that, we need to understand the material. They used two main types of stone here, a reddish-brown sandstone and a much harder, gray andesite. The sandstone quarries were found about 10 kilometers away, a challenging but perhaps manageable distance. But the andesite ... that's a different story. The nearest quarry is a staggering 90 kilometers away, across rugged terrain and a massive lake. And it's not just the distance that baffles engineers and archaeologists, it's the stone itself. Andesite is incredibly tough, ranking around a 7 on the Mohs scale of hardness. For comparison, modern high-quality steel is about a 6.5. Yet, these ancient builders didn't just move these multi-ton blocks. They shaped them into complex, interlocking forms with razor-sharp edges and perfectly flat surfaces. Look at these cuts. They are so precise that you can't even slip a piece of paper between them. They have right angles that are mathematically perfect. How could a civilization, supposedly equipped with only primitive tools, achieve this level of accuracy? Mainstream archaeology suggests they used stone pounders, maybe made of hematite, along with copper and bronze tools, and a lot of sand and water as an abrasive. Imagine spending months, maybe even years, slowly grinding down one surface of a single block. It's an incredible feat of patience and labor, but does it fully explain what we're seeing? And then there's the design. Why so many identical H-blocks? They appear to be standardized, almost like they were mass-produced. This suggests a highly organized society with a sophisticated system of measurement and templates. They weren't just building a structure, they were creating an assembly kit of massive proportions. Each H-block would have interlocked with the one next to it, forming long, continuous walls. CGI reconstructions show us what this might have looked like: a sprawling, complex city built from these mind-bending stones. Now, let's talk logistics. How do you transport a block weighing over 100 tons across 90 kilometers of hills and water? The traditional explanation involves thousands of workers using logs as rollers and massive ropes made from llama wool or reeds. They would have slowly, painstakingly dragged these behemoths across the high-altitude plains of the Altiplano. To cross Lake Titicaca, they would have needed enormous reed boats, capable of supporting immense weight. While theoretically possible, the sheer scale of coordination, resources, and manpower required is almost beyond comprehension. We're talking about an effort that would rival modern construction projects, all accomplished without a single written word to guide them, at least none that have survived. This is where things get even more mysterious. Some fringe researchers have pointed to strange anomalies at the site. They claim to have found evidence of advanced machining, suggesting the use of power tools. They point to the perfectly drilled holes, some with interior grooves that are difficult to explain with simple hand drills. There are also claims of magnetic anomalies within the stones and unusual metallurgical findings, though it is crucial to state that these ideas are highly debated and not accepted by the mainstream scientific community. These theories often propose lost ancient technologies or even extraterrestrial intervention. While exciting, they lack the verifiable evidence that archaeology and science demand. So where does that leave us? Let's return to what we can prove. The mainstream explanation, while less sensational, is perhaps even more awe-inspiring. It paints a picture of a society with a profound understanding of geometry, logistics, and human organization. The idea of thousands of people working in perfect harmony, using simple tools with incredible skill and patience to shape mountains and build a city for their gods, is a testament to human ingenuity. The process would have been methodical. First, quarrying. Workers would identify fractures in the rock, drive in wooden wedges, and then soak them with water. As the wood expanded, it would crack the stone, freeing massive chunks. Then came the long journey. Think of the sheer force of will required to move these blocks, inch by inch, day after day. Finally, The finishing work, artisans, using a combination of stone hammers and abrasive slurries, would spend countless hours grinding, polishing, and shaping each block to fit perfectly into its designated spot. It's a solution grounded in human effort, not lost super technology. But even with this explanation, questions remain. The precision is still the biggest puzzle. Achieving this level of accuracy consistently across hundreds of blocks using manual methods is a feat that modern stonemasons would find incredibly difficult, even with today's tools. It suggests a level of quality control and measurement that was simply unparalleled. The mystery of how they did it might never be fully solved. The civilization left behind no written records to explain their methods. All we have are the stones themselves, silent witnesses to a forgotten age of genius. They whisper of a people who were masters of their environment, capable of shaping the very bedrock of the world to fit their vision. But perhaps we've been asking the right questions about the wrong things. We're so focused on the how that we forget to ask why. Why this obsession with precision? Why go to such extraordinary lengths to build in this specific way? The answer might not be purely structural. If the stones themselves were so precise, perhaps the city itself was aligned with something far greater. The precision might not have been just for building, but for observing the cosmos. As we look up from these perfectly cut stones, we start to see a bigger picture. A pattern emerges, not just in the layout of the blocks, but in the alignment of the entire complex. The story of these stones isn't just about engineering, it might be about reaching for the stars. Join us next time as we explore the astronomical alignments of this incredible ancient city. Thanks for watching, and if you're fascinated by the mysteries of the past, don't forget to subscribe. Have you ever looked up at the night sky and felt a connection to the past? Gazing at the same stars that our ancestors did thousands of years ago. Tonight, we're journeying to the ancient city of Tiwanaku, high in the Bolivian Andes, to a place where the cosmos and the earth meet. Above the silent ruins of a once mighty civilization, the stars perform their eternal dance, just as they did centuries ago. And here, etched in stone, stands the magnificent Gate of the Sun. For years, scholars have been captivated by this monumental archway, wondering about its purpose. Was it simply a grand entrance, or could it be something more? Could this enigmatic gateway be a sophisticated cosmic calendar, designed to track the sun, the moon, and the stars? The people of the Andes have always had a deep relationship with the sky. Their lives, their agriculture, their rituals were all tied to celestial cycles. The solstices, marking the longest and shortest days of the year, were especially significant. These were moments when the sun reached its extreme positions in the sky, heralding the change of seasons. Across the Andes, from Machu Picchu to smaller, lesser-known sites, we find structures deliberately aligned to capture the first or last rays of the solstice sun. It was a way of anchoring time, of bringing order to the world, and of celebrating the divine power of the sun god, Inti. So, when we look at a masterpiece like the Gate of the Sun, we have to ask, was Tiwanaku the grandest of these celestial observatories? This brings us to the core of the mystery. Could the intricate carvings and precise dimensions of the Gate of the Sun encode complex astronomical information? Are the figures that adorn its surface not just deities, but symbols representing constellations, planets, or even entire cosmic cycles? The central figure, often identified as the staff god, is flanked by 48 winged attendants. Some researchers believe these figures aren't just decorative. They suggest they could represent a solar calendar, with the different figures marking specific days or periods within the year. Imagine a calendar carved in stone, a permanent record of time itself. Could Tiwanaku have been more than just a city, but a giant instrument for observing the heavens? To test this idea, we can use modern technology to turn back the clock. Using powerful astronomical software, we can reconstruct the night sky as it appeared over Tiwanaku more than 1,000 years ago, around the time the city was at its peak. When we overlay these ancient star charts onto the city's layout, some fascinating patterns emerge. We see that certain temples and structures appear to align perfectly with the rising and setting points of not just the sun on the solstices, but also with key constellations in the Andean world, like the Pleiades. The Pleiades, a star cluster known as the Seven Sisters, was crucial for agricultural planning. While most archaeologists agree that Tiwanaku had astronomical significance around 1,500 years ago, a few researchers have proposed a far more radical theory. They looked at the astronomical alignments and suggested that they don't match the sky of 500 AD. Instead, they argue the alignments point to a much older date. How much older? Some have proposed dates as far back as 10,000 BC. This would completely rewrite our understanding of ancient American history, suggesting a highly advanced civilization existed in the Andes thousands of years before we previously thought possible. This idea hinges on the concept of axial precession, the slow wobble of the Earth's axis, which gradually changes the apparent position of the stars over millennia. This theory of a prehistoric Tiwanaku is incredibly compelling, but it's also highly debated. It would mean that the builders of this city were observing the sky during the last ice age. Most mainstream archaeologists and historians are skeptical. They point out that the archaeological evidence on the ground, the pottery, the tools, the carbon-dated materials all firmly place the city's construction and peak influence in the period between 300 and 1000 AD. They argue that applying these extreme astronomical dates ignores the wealth of other evidence. It's a classic case of a fascinating theory colliding with hard data. So where does that leave us? Are we looking at a 1,500-year-old ceremonial center or a 12,000-year-old astronomical supercomputer? The most balanced conclusion is that the truth lies somewhere in the middle, but leans heavily towards the established timeline. The astronomical alignments at Tiwanaku are undeniable. The city was almost certainly designed with the cosmos in mind, serving as a powerful ritual and political center where earthly power was legitimized by celestial order. The gate of the sun likely did function as a type of calendar, marking the solstices and reinforcing the connection between the rulers and the gods of the sky. However, the idea of an extreme antiquity of a 12,000-year-old observatory remains on the fringe of scientific thought. It's an exciting possibility, but one that lacks the concrete archaeological evidence needed to support it. The science points to a sophisticated culture that flourished around 1,500 years ago, not in the midst of the last ice age. What is certain is that for centuries, Tiwanaku was the cosmological capital of the Andes. It was a place where human beings sought to understand their place in the universe, to map the heavens, and to bring cosmic order down to earth. The city's influence spread across a vast empire, its ideas about time, power, and the sacred landscape shaping cultures for generations to come. The ruins we see today are the silent remnants of this grand vision, a testament to a people who saw themselves as living at the very center of the cosmos, in perfect harmony with the sun, the moon, and the stars. It was a city built to last for eternity, a reflection of the unchanging heavens above. But even cosmic cities, built to mirror the eternal stars, can fall. Empires crumble, power shifts, and even the most enduring monuments can be reclaimed by the earth. What happened to this great civilization? Why did this celestial capital, which once dominated the Andes, eventually collapse and fade into memory, leaving its stone calendar to be puzzled over by future generations? That's a story for another time. Thanks for watching. And if you enjoyed this journey into the past, don't forget to like and subscribe for more adventures. Imagine a civilization so advanced it could reshape the very land to feed its people, a power that dominated the Andes for centuries. Now, picture that same land, cracked and barren, its great stone cities empty, whispering tales of a silent end. What catastrophe could bring such a mighty empire to its knees? For years, we thought it was war, a violent conquest that erased the Tiwanaku from history. But the real story, hidden in the mud of ancient lake beds and the stone of abandoned temples, is far more chilling. Welcome to the high plains of the Andes, over 12,000 feet above sea level. This was the heart of the Tiwanaku Empire, a civilization that thrived here for over 1,000 years. Their secret weapon, not swords or spears, but an ingenious system of agriculture called raised fields. Picture a grid of canals and elevated planting beds stretching as far as the eye can see. These canals captured precious water, absorbed the sun's heat during the day, and released it at night, protecting crops from the brutal mountain frosts. This system was so effective it supported a massive population, turning a harsh environment into a breadbasket. For centuries, Tiwanaku was the undisputed center of this part of the world, its influence reaching across modern-day Bolivia, Peru, and Chile. So, if they had mastered their environment, what went wrong? For a long time, the simplest answer seemed the most likely: invasion. Historians imagined rival groups, perhaps the neighboring Wari, sweeping in and conquering the great city. It's a classic story of empire falls to empire. But when archaeologists began to excavate the ruins of Tiwanaku, they found something strange, or rather, they didn't find something. There were no layers of ash from city-wide fires. No hastily buried bodies in mass graves, no signs of a final, desperate battle. The great gates weren't smashed in, the temple walls weren't torn down in a frenzy of conquest. The city was almost perfectly preserved, as if its people had just walked away. This lack of violence completely upended the invasion theory. If it wasn't a conqueror's sword that ended Tiwanaku, what was it? The answer began to emerge not from the ruins themselves, but from the ground beneath. Scientists, drilling deep into the sediment of nearby Lake Titicaca, pulled up core samples that acted like a time machine. Each layer of mud tells a story of the climate, year by year, for thousands of years. And around the year 1000 AD, the story takes a dramatic turn. The evidence points to the beginning of a sudden, severe, and incredibly long-lasting drought. We're not talking about a few dry years. We're talking about decades, maybe even centuries, of drastically reduced rainfall. The lifeblood of the Tiwanaku civilization, the water that filled their ingenious canals, was disappearing. Imagine you are a farmer in the Tiwanaku heartland. For generations, your family has worked the raised fields. The system has always provided, but now, the rains don't come. The canals, once full, are now just trenches of dry, cracked mud. The sun beats down relentlessly on the high plateau, your crops wither. The sophisticated agricultural system that once fed an empire is now failing. Year after year, the situation gets worse. The granaries empty, people begin to starve. The social fabric starts to fray. The priests and rulers, who were believed to mediate with the gods to ensure good harvests, are now powerless. Their rituals fail to bring the rain. Faith in the entire system begins to crumble. This wasn't a sudden collapse, it was a slow, agonizing decline. There was no single, dramatic event. Instead, families and communities likely made the difficult decision to leave, to seek out more fertile lands, perhaps in lower-lying valleys where water was still available. They packed what they could and abandoned the stone cities their ancestors had built. It was a mass migration born of desperation, a gradual exodus that left the once bustling capital of Tiwanaku a ghost town. The great city, with its monumental gateways and sunken temples, was left to the mercy of the wind and the encroaching desert. It wasn't an enemy army that defeated Tiwanaku. It was an enemy they couldn't fight, climate change, but abandonment does not erase memory. The story of Tiwanaku doesn't end with empty cities. The people who left carried their culture, their beliefs, and their knowledge with them. They dispersed across the Andes, and their legacy became woven into the fabric of the societies that followed. Centuries later, another great empire would rise in these same mountains, the Inca, and when we look closely at Inca culture, we can see the ghost of Tiwanaku everywhere. In their mythology, the creator god Viracocha was said to have emerged from Lake Titicaca, a belief with deep Tiwanaku roots. In their architecture and stonework, we see echoes of Tiwanaku's masterful techniques. And in their religion, we see the continuation of Tiwanaku's spiritual traditions. The Tiwanaku may have lost their empire to the climate, but their culture proved far more resilient. They laid the foundation for the next great Andean civilization. Their story is a powerful reminder that a civilization is more than its buildings and borders. It's a collection of ideas, traditions, and memories that can survive even the most catastrophic collapse. It also serves as a stark warning from the past. The Tiwanaku were masters of engineering, capable of thriving in one of the world's most challenging environments. Yet, even they were ultimately vulnerable to a radical shift in the climate. It shows us that no matter how advanced we believe we are, our survival is fundamentally tied to the health of our planet. The silent stones of Tiwanaku ask us a question across the centuries. Are we listening? Thank you so much for joining me on this journey into the past. If you found this story fascinating, please hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into forgotten histories. Let me know in the comments what other lost civilizations you'd like to explore. See you next time. High in the Bolivian Andes, a ceremony unfolds. Colorful textiles shimmer against the backdrop of ancient, colossal stones. An Aymara leader chants, smoke from a ritual fire curling into the thin mountain air. This isn't a reenactment for tourists, this is a living tradition, a connection stretching back thousands of years. It asks a powerful question: did the civilization of Tiwanaku ever truly disappear? Or does it just speak a different language now? Welcome to one of the world's most enigmatic ancient sites. At nearly 13,000 feet above sea level, Tiwanaku stands as a monument of impossible engineering. Its stone gateways and sunken temples have puzzled historians and archaeologists for centuries. And where there's mystery, fringe theories are never far behind. Why is this place such a magnet for them? Why does its mystery endure, even as we uncover more of its secrets? Walk through these ruins, and you can almost hear the whispers of speculation. Some look at the impossibly precise stonework, the massive H-blocks weighing over 100 tons, and claim it couldn't have been human hands. They point to the sky and talk of ancient aliens, drawing lines between Tiwanaku and far-flung constellations. Others look at its proximity to Lake Titicaca and imagine a lost connection to the mythical city of Atlantis, swallowed by a great flood. It's about what they achieved on their own, against all odds, in one of the harshest environments on Earth. Let's ground ourselves in reality. Forget aliens for a moment and consider the sheer human ingenuity required to build this city. This was a civilization that mastered high-altitude living. They developed sophisticated agricultural systems, like raised fields called sucacalas, that allowed them to produce massive food surpluses in a place with freezing nights and intense sun. This agricultural wealth was the foundation of their power, allowing them to support a large population and a specialized class of architects, engineers, and priests. Their understanding of engineering was breathtaking. The stones weren't just cut. They were shaped with a precision that modern tools would struggle to replicate. Look at the Gateway of the Sun. It was carved from a single block of andesite, adorned with intricate iconography representing their staff god deity. This wasn't just construction, it was a cosmic statement, a calendar in stone, aligning perfectly with solstices and equinoxes. They moved these colossal blocks from quarries miles away, across difficult terrain, without the wheel, without iron tools, and without a written language as we know it. The dedication, the multi-generational planning, the sheer collective will required to achieve this is staggering. This wasn't just a city, it was the capital of a vast empire that stretched across parts of modern-day Bolivia, Peru, and Chile. Its influence wasn't just military, but cultural and spiritual. Tiwanaku became a pilgrimage site, the Rome or Mecca of the ancient Andes. Its religious iconography, its architectural style, and its agricultural techniques spread throughout the region, laying the groundwork for later civilizations, including the Inca, who revered Tiwanaku as their place of origin. So what happened to them? Around the year 1000 AD, Tiwanaku's influence began to wane. The latest research points not to a sudden cataclysm, but to a prolonged period of climate change. A severe drought lasting decades, perhaps even a century, crippled their advanced agricultural system. The raised fields that had been their genius solution became useless without consistent water. As food became scarce, the social fabric that held the empire together likely unraveled. The central authority collapsed, and people abandoned the city, dispersing back into smaller, more sustainable communities across the Altiplano. Tiwanaku wasn't conquered by an enemy army, it was slowly defeated by the climate. The city fell silent, left to the wind and the high-altitude sun. But its legacy never died. The descendants of the Tiwanaku people are the Aymara and Quechua communities who live in this region today. The language, the cosmology, the deep spiritual connection to the land, and the sky, it all echoes the world of their ancestors. The ceremonies performed today at the ruins are not just about remembering the past. They are about reaffirming an identity that has endured for millennia. Tiwanaku provided a foundational identity for the Andean world, a sense of shared heritage and cosmic order that persisted long after its stone walls were abandoned. It became a lugar de origin, a sacred place of origin for countless people. We stand here, looking at these silent, geometric forms against the vast Andean horizon. The more we learn through science, through archaeology, climate data, and genetic studies, the deeper the real mystery becomes. The mystery is no longer who built this, but how. How did a society, at this extreme altitude, achieve such a profound understanding of astronomy, engineering, and agriculture? How did they organize themselves to create a culture that would define a continent for 1,000 years? Some mysteries fade when they are explained. The story becomes smaller, less magical, but others, like this one, only deepen. The more we strip away the fantasies of aliens and lost worlds, the more we are confronted with the awe-inspiring power of human resilience, intelligence, and spirit. Tiwanaku remains silent, precise, and watching. Thank you for joining us on this journey to the roof of the world. If you found this story as fascinating as we do, please consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel for more explorations into the world's greatest mysteries. We'll see you next time.
As we close this chapter of the Chrono Archives, remember, the past is never truly gone. It waits patiently in the shadows of forgotten ruins, in the echoes of ancient voices, and in the timeless lessons that still guide us today. It waits to be remembered by curious minds like yours. Thank you for joining us on this extraordinary journey through the annals of time. If today's exploration of lost civilizations, mythical legends, or historical enigmas ignited your passion for the past, hit that like button, drop a comment with your favorite moment or what you'd love to see next, and most importantly, subscribe to the Chrono Archives and continue the journey through time. Turn on notifications so you never miss an episode where we unearth buried secrets, decode ancient mysteries, and bring history's greatest stories back to life. Together, we'll keep the flame of the past burning bright. Until next time, fellow time travelers, keep questioning, keep discovering, and keep remembering. The Chrono Archives, where the past lives forever.